Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lana. Today I'm coming to you with a book haul. Last time I did a book haul on my channel was 2 months ago, and these are the books that I've accumulated since then. There are 2 more books that I purchased in December, like early December, that are still on their way to me. When I order anything from a different country, it always takes a while. So let's get started. The first 2 books that I want to talk about were bought secondhand. It's John Steinbeck of Mice and Men and Shirley Jackson, We Have Always Lived in the Castle. I did a reading vlog where I read both of these and I loved both of them. These were very cheap, but they're also a little water damaged, but I really wanted this edition, and it's readable, and you don't really notice this unless you look from up here. But these editions are hard to find as it is in Russia, and those that are available are very expensive, so this was like a good find. And then I broke my rule. I do have a rule that I only read books in translation if I'm not able to read the original. But we were in a bookstore and it was so pretty, and I decided to just go ahead and buy Piranesi by Susanna Clark. The paper is of incredible quality and it has a dust jacket, and it's just, look at this. It's so pretty and beautiful, and I've been wanting to read this book anyway, and so I decided to just go ahead and read this, and I've already read it, as you can tell by the tabs. I finished it yesterday, I think. Feels like it's been a long time. And it was a very unusual book. I don't think I've ever read anything like it. You don't really understand what's happening most of the time. The premise is that you read the diary entries of this guy who seems to be living in a house with infinite amount of rooms and staircases, and it's like it feels like a different world, and that world is all this one house. But he doesn't really feel imprisoned. It's just, it's just his world, and you sort of slowly get to learn who he is and how did he get there. I ended up giving this 3.5 stars because it was very interesting and I did enjoy it, but it just didn't touch my heartstrings. Like, I intellectually really enjoyed it, but my heart was left untouched. It also has that, I don't know if it's a trope or not, when you understand what's happening before the main character does, and you sort of get, what happened pretty early on, I'll say like in the halfway point, and then the rest of the book you see him trying to understand it and make it work in his mind, because he doesn't, what you think is normal to him is just inconceivable. So it's very bizarre in that way. I'm more used to books where you discover things alongside the character, or the character realizes something and you get to find out later. This was the opposite of that. You know what's happening, he doesn't, and you see him struggling, which, I mean, I don't know if it's like a trope I enjoy or not. I don't think I read many like these. I don't think that's why it didn't touch my heart, because there is a certain amount of compassion towards someone who has to come to terms with a reality that they're not ready to accept. But anyway, that was this book. I think in the last book haul I showed you that I bought Picture of Dorian Gray in this edition, and I bought another one. So I've been looking to start buying Jane Austen in its original English, because I originally read the books in Russian when I was way younger, I was like 14 maybe, and I don't have those books anymore, and I want to reread the books, and I want to read them in English this time, and I wanted just to own them. And so I've been on a hunt looking for different editions, seeing which ones do I want to commit to, because I do want them all to be in one pretty package. The edition that I ended up choosing was the Penguin Library Classic, and ever since then I'm sort of fallen in love with all the other books in that collection. And someone in Moscow was selling their copy of Dorian Gray in that edition for pretty much as cheap as I bought this. So here it is. It is beautiful, and yeah, I'm just so happy to have this, and I am going to sell this one secondhand the way that I pretty much bought this. Was this a sensible purchase? I don't know. Then in December, Rosie tagged me in the Christmas Carol tag, and I realized that I've never read the Christmas Carol, and I went ahead and bought it, and I chose this edition. Not that there are like a lot of editions for me to choose from. Apparently this is part of a collection of different books that are all about Christmas, and they're all their covers look like they are a present, which I think is super cute. And yeah, it's a tiny book. It has a lot of Santa Clauses in the back. And then for the new year, my sister got me as a present Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen in the edition that I wanted. And I am so happy to have my own copy of this classic, and it's definitely going to be reread this year. So in December, I was perusing a bookstore in Moscow with my mask on and everything, and I happened upon what I to this day think is a mistake. I think they put the wrong price on the book because it was way too cheap. Like way too cheap. It's even cheap for a Russian book. Definitely cheap for a paperback English book that was brought from England. But yeah, I bought it. So this is The Heart's Invisible Furies. I've had this book on my TBR for several years now. Is it several years? It feels like a long time. And I've heard incredible things about it. So many people say it's their favorite book ever, and I think it's absolutely beautiful, and I'm so excited to get to it. And in the back it says, cast out from her West Cork village, 16 years old and pregnant, Catherine Coggin makes her way to Dublin to start afresh. She has no choice but to believe that the nun to whom she entrusts her child will find him a better life. The baby is named Cyril by his adoptive parents, Charles and Maud Avery, a well-to-do but deeply eccentric couple who treat him more like a curiosity than a son. You're not a real Avery, they tell him, and perhaps he isn't, but through them he meets Julian Woodbead, who, even from childhood, seems destined for an infinitely more glamorous and dangerous life. And so begins one man's funny and moving search to find his place in a world that seems to delight in gently tormenting him at every turn. I'm not sure that I read those names correctly, by the way. But yeah, this book is written by an Irish author about Ireland, and I kind of want to keep it for the Irish readathon that's happening in spring. Kind of want to start earlier than that so I can finish it on the readathon, because I don't think I can read this in 1 week. And the last two books in this pile are the most recent ones. First one is Terry Pratchett, Weird Sisters. I bought this after I finished reading Going Postal, my first Terry Pratchett book. I really enjoyed it, and I wanted to read more books in the Discworld series, and I went on the Terry Pratchett website, and they have like a quiz. Based on that quiz, they recommend you a book that would suit you best from the Discworld series, and I got Weird Sisters, and I'm so excited to read this one. I don't even know what this is. 3 witches gathered on a lonely heath, a king cruelly murdered, his throne usurped by his ambitious cousin, a child heir and the crown of the kingdom both missing. Witches don't have these kind of dynamic problems themselves. In fact, they don't have leaders. Granny Weatherwax was the most highly regarded of the leaders they didn't have, but even she found that meddling in royal politics was a lot more complicated than certain playwrights would have you believe, particularly when the blood on your hands just won't wash off and you're facing a future with knives in it. It definitely has a lot of references to Macbeth, and as I've mentioned on this channel before, I love Shakespeare and any kind of mention of his plays, so I think this will be right up my alley. And the last book is The Silent Companions by Laura Purcell. First of all, it's very pretty. Second of all, it says a sinister slice of Victorian Gothic. So the premise is Newly married, newly widowed, Elsie is sent to see out her pregnancy at her late husband's crumbling country estate, The Bridge. With her new servants resentful and the local villagers actively hostile, Elsie only has her husband's awkward cousin for company. Or so she thinks, for inside her new home lies a mysterious wooden figure, a silent companion, that bears an unsettling resemblance to Elsie herself. I love creepy, gothic books set in the Victorian era, and this sounds kind of ghosty, and the cover has this creepy eye. How awesome is this? So these are all the books that I purchased in the last 2 months. I know it's not a lot according to BookTube standards, but considering the fact that after purchasing these, I've already read 4. One of them I've read previously, so it will be a reread. I only have 4 brand new books that I've never read, and I feel like for 2 months, that's pretty good. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you had fun, and I will see you in my next video.